Hey everyone, it's Kosher Kush 420, bringing you a cooking video today. We're doing chicken dinner for two. We're going to do a pan roasted chicken breast. We've got roasted corn on the cob. We're going to do some sauteed green beans, some baby gold mashed potatoes, and we're going to finish it off with a pan gravy. I'm going to show you how to fabricate a whole chicken and break it down into its essential pieces. We're going to run through some cooking basics on how to blanch the green beans, and then we're going to make our sauce in the pan with the reduced juices from the chicken. So first we got our whole chicken, you got our wings, you got our legs, and our two breasts that are separated by the breastbone. So we're going to take our first cut right onto the side of the breastbone, cut all the way down to the rib cage, and then just keep working your way down the body of the cavity. Come near the head, you'll find the wishbone. So you're just going to come right to the side of that. Just keep cutting all the way down along the body till you reach down to the bottom of the cutting board. When we get to the shoulder joint, you're just going to kind of pop that with your fingers and get your knife in between the two bones. Just keep working your way back towards the thigh. Just keep making your little cuts. You're going to find the hip joint. You're going to try and pop that as well. Might need to make a little cut to help free the bone joint. Once you've got that popped, you're going to, again, like the shoulder, just bring your knife in between the two joints and just cut in between it. So we've got our first half done. Now we're going to do our second half. Again, follow along the other side of the breastbone, all the way down to the rib cage and around the wishbone. You make your way through that shoulder joint. First we're going to take off this wing right at the first joint. Just pop your knife right through the little bones. Again, like I said, so we're going to keep following down along the cavity, staying as close to the bones as possible. Cut right through that shoulder. Make our way back to the hip. Pop that joint. Take your knife through that. And then for you've got now your broken down chicken, you can use your carcass to make some stock or whatever. This next little clip I've taken already broken down the first half into its main pieces, your thigh, your drumstick, your wings, and your chicken breasts, and I'm going to show you how to do that on the other half. So it's naturally separated dark meat and white meat from the skin in between, so we're just going to cut that right down the center and separate your pieces. We're going to go through and we're going to French our chicken breast. No, this does not mean slipping it the tongue. This is a classic technique, fancy presentation for your chicken breast. So you're just going to take it, cut it all the way down to the bone, and you're just going to scrape that meat with the edge of your knife into the shoulder joint. And you're going to make your way all the way around the bone, clean every little bit of it. So as we finish off the front side, we're going to make our way to the back side. And just cut that skin, cut that meat right all the way down to the bone, and then just scrape it down into that shoulder joint. There'll be some extra skin and stuff that you'll see I'm kind of holding on to at the top of the joint of the bone. We're going to grab all of that and just kind of cut that off there. And set that aside into our compost pile. So we've got a nice clean French chicken breast. We're going to set that aside. We're going to grab our our dark meat and separate our thigh from our drumstick. We're going to reserve all of the dark meat for a later on video where we're going to do some pan fried chicken. So you're in the shoulder, in the dark meat, so you're just going to find that kneecap, that kind of knee joint, and just cut right in between that. Alright, so we've got all of our chicken broken down. Time to move on to the next step. After you wash your hands. Always make sure you wash your hands when dealing with raw chicken. You never want to give someone salmonella. So to do our roasted corn, we're just going to pop that right onto a sheet tray into a preheated oven at 400 degrees and let that cook for 45 minutes. Next we're going to start our mashed potatoes. So we're just going to cut our potatoes in half. All the large to medium sized ones we're going to cut. Any of the small ones you're just going to throw right in the bowl or into the pot. So we've got our potatoes covered in water. Put them on the heat to bring them up to a boil. We're going to season our water with a little bit of salt. Next, we're going to clean our green beans just by snapping the ends off. You can do this with your hands or just cut. Either way works for you. You're just going to basically take the tips off at each ends. Now, to blanch any green vegetables or anything really, you're always going to blanch it in heavily salted water. That's not enough salt, believe me. You need a lot more. Chef always used to tell me it needs to taste like the ocean. Sorry, excuse me. So once that's to a boil, we're going to grab our green beans. We're going to throw those into the boiling water and cook them for about 30 seconds. While you're doing that, I'm grabbing a bowl of water and some ice cubes because we're going to shock those green beans into the ice cold water as soon as that 30 seconds is up. So blanching brings all of the chlorophyll right to the surface of the plant, which therefore makes it a lot more bright green color than you would get naturally. So those are set off to the side. We're going to start to fry off our chicken breasts. I've seasoned those with salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. Got a nice hot saute pan with oil. Just going to let those sear off until they get golden brown and crispy on the skin side. Alright, so you can see that we've started to get a good cook. You can start to see the meat on the outside is starting to white. I've seasoned the meat side, and we're going to flip those and sear those off until they're golden brown as well. So you see you've got a nice little golden brown color on the other sides. We're going to put those in the oven to finish those off. Before we do that, we're going to start to build our base for our gravy. So I've got some poultry herb mix, which is just sage, rosemary, and thyme. Could always think of Simon and Garfunkel. I usually always do, except for I don't have any parsley. So take some chicken broth. It's also going to help build our stock or our gravy. So we're going to reduce those juices as it cooks in the oven with the chicken. We're just going to put that in with our corn right on the sheet tray. Alright, just let that finish off. And as potatoes were cooking, you can see they're now soft and squishy to the touch. So we're going to start to strain those off. Anytime you strain off boiling hot water, like say pastas or potatoes, into your sink, I highly suggest running cold water. When you pour boiling hot water into your sink, you will start to warp your seals for your garbage disposal and things. So we're going to return the potatoes back to the pot. We're going to start to dry them, which just means you're going to put them in on low heat and just let that extra water that's still in the potatoes start to evaporate. We're going to add in some butter, we're going to add in some milk, and just let those melt. Mixing occasionally. You do not want to over mix potatoes or else they will start to become gluey and get a pretty sticky kind of mouthfeel to them. So as we just sit, we're always going to season salt and pepper, add a little bit of garlic powder as well. Just give it a little mix and just keep letting that butter kind of slowly melt itself into your potatoes. These are still looking a little dry, so we're going to add just a little more milk. Coming in a second. So here we go. Just a touch more milk if you want a nice creamy mashed potatoes. Carefully stir that in so you're not splashing all over. Whenever you're mixing, always make sure you work down to the bottom and scrape your sides. Always make sure you try and taste your food as you go. As you can see, I needed a little more salt and they just weren't creamy enough, so I'm going to add a little more butter and just kind of let that sit off to the side as the butter melts and work on something else. Alright, now the butter's just kind of tucked in the bottom, and we're just going to let that melt. So we've got our little saute pan with a hot oil. We're going to take our blanched green beans and just fry those up for a little bit. Anytime you saute anything, you always want to hear that nice little sizzle in the oil. Make sure everything's nice and hot. You don't want to cook in cold oil. When you do that, your vegetables just absorb that oil. They don't really cook. So we've got those nice and hot. The skin is starting to crinkle just a little bit. Season them with a little salt and pepper, and we're just going to set those off to the side while we finish up our chicken and our roasted corn. So after 45 minutes, our roasted corn is about done, so we're just going to pull those out of the oven. And we're going to set our pan with chicken off to the side and just kind of let that cook for a little bit to reduce that gravy. So when cleaning corn on the cob, you're going to grab from the top, go all the way to the bottom, try and get all of your extra little hairs and stuff off of there. This is still kind of hot, so unless your hands are used to dealing with a nice hot product, I don't suggest doing this part barehanded. And there you have it. You just break off the husk at the bottom, and you have nice cleaned corn on the cob. So our chicken breast is ready. It's reached its temp of 165. Always make sure when you're cooking chicken, or any poultry, it always reaches an internal temp of 165. So we're going to take our juices and our stock and all that stuff and start to reduce that. We're going to remove our herbs because we don't want those in our gravy. And we're just going to bring all of that delicious chicken flavor and concentrate that down. So this is going to take a little bit of time to just reduce it all, and you want it to be like a nice syrupy consistency. Alright, so we've now reduced it down. You can see it's kind of, the bubbles are nice and tight. The syrup looks kind of viscous. So what we're doing now is we're mounting in butter. It's a French term called monter au beurre. This is an emulsification. So what you're doing is you're essentially coating that chicken stock within the fat oil elements of the butter. This builds some body and builds some extra flavor into everything as well. The point with this emulsification is, and with most emulsifications, you have a couple things that can break your sauce. There's time, temperature, and moisture. If you don't have enough moisture and too much oil, your emulsification will break and you'll just have a whole bunch of oily stuff. So think about like oil and vinegar dressing. When it sits too long, it separates all that oil and all that vinegar into like two different spots. You don't want that. So this one you're just gonna kind of keep it in and off the heat. That way you're not getting it too hot, you're not getting it too cold. That will also break your sauces. And when you have a broken sauce, like I said, with the oil and vinegar, you will see the separation of your oil versus your actual sauce. So if you start to see that just a little bit and you're too hot, pull it off the heat, keep mixing it. Part of the emulsification is just keeping things moving. So once all of our butter is melted and we've seasoned our sauce with a little bit of salt and pepper, keep in mind that the chicken broth, as it reduces, will concentrate all of that sodium that's already in there, so you probably won't need a whole lot of salt. Now plating dinner, because everything's ready. So we're going to take our mashed potatoes, we're going to get a nice pile right in the center. Whenever plating food, height is usually always important. People always eat with their eyes first, right? Height kind of gives it that extra dynamic. So we're going to put our green beans off to the side, kind of piling up onto the mashed potatoes. We're going to take our nice roasted corn on the cob and set that off onto the other side, which creates now a little spot for us to put our gravy. So we're going to pour that right into the bottom, in between our two veg and next to our mashed potatoes. Next we're going to take our delicious golden brown pan roasted chicken breast, put that right there in the center of it. You don't want to pour your gravy over your chicken breast because then your skin gets all soggy, and the whole point is you're looking for a nice crispy skin. So there we have our essentially first plate. You're just going to do the same thing with everything left over to build your second dinner for two. Taking a little knob of butter onto the corn of the cob, we're going to let that melt and spread that all over the cob. Next we season that with a little bit of salt and pepper, and there we have our chicken dinner for two. Hope this was helpful, hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any other ideas or suggestions that you would like me to make, please drop them in the comments. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Thank you guys.